Palantir.
Hey, this is not a test. This is rock and roll. Time to rock it from the Delta to the DMZ. Is that me or does that sound like an Elvis Presley movie? Viva Da Nang. Oh, viva.
All right, welcome back to the channel, everyone. Definitely did not have this in my bingo card for 2025, but I probably should have seen it coming. This is huge news. I think there's a lot of confusion out there about like why is it huge news? And it's not just like, oh, Databricks is finally like they're capitulating or something. No, not at all. I want to break down like really quickly the role that Databricks plays in these organizations, and also the role that open data formats are playing now, that are sort of turning data warehouses into total commodities, which is pretty cool. And also what you need now on top of these data warehouses to sort of make them useful, and that's why this partnership between Palantir and Databricks is so interesting. We're going to do some diagramming real quick and just kind of dive into just a little bit about open data formats, why they're important architecturally, what they're enabling, and how it's driving this strategic partnership. And also, like from a business perspective, why would your data strategy involve bringing in something like Palantir on top of your assets? So let's take a look at our very basic diagram to kind of break this down. Right there in the middle, you have this like multi-year useless exercise companies have been performing called master data management. A lot of times, or maybe you'll see this as like a data lakehouse initiative to incorporate real-time streaming into data, whatever the fuck that means. But basically what these large bloated bureaucratic IT orgs have been doing is basically trying to build an operational data platform for the business, and they've been implementing everything under the sun to do it and spending tens of millions, in some cases hundreds of millions of dollars, and taking years and somewhat succeeding, then rebuilding it again. All they're trying to do in these exercises here is to get all the data into one place so the business can start using it to drive organizational decision making. Now, you can do that in Foundry in a matter of weeks, typically, but which you know, with these other technologies, tend to have to like build a lot of the underlying infrastructure underneath it to make it to make the initiative viable. And almost all of these now are leveraging object storage, replacing the sort of Hadoop file system, the traditional Hadoop file system that used to power a lot of this stuff. Almost all of them are using object storage like S3, or maybe they're using Azure Blob Storage or Google Cloud Storage. But what the object storage layer gives you is like infinite scalability, durability. It's extremely cheap. It's a great place to store your data. You should put your data there. And these data lakes and lake houses and warehousing technologies on top of it are supposed to be there to catalog it and allow you to use it, mine it, transform it, export it, do whatever you need to do to get it into an operational setting. And with the advent of open data technology, this has really taken off because a lot of the compute operations and a lot of the cataloging operations can now be done in the storage layer itself if it has support for those things. And so like Delta, Iceberg, Hootie, they're bringing this, they're really relegating the need for a lot of this other stuff that traditionally was out here, your data warehouse technology. They're sort of, you may not need that in the future. What you need out of your data warehouse is more like what Databricks has been positioning for, which is like a lakehouse where it's also managing like your streaming applications. It's more of the place where all your data scientists work. Like it's a tool that's powering an operational layer. Now, none of these technologies have an application serving layer built in natively. Like you're not going to be building the kind of apps you can build in Foundry inside these technologies, but they're all evolving quickly to be more of an operational platform than a data platform, right? Because like a lot of this stuff with open data is now being commoditized, and everyone wants to put their data in object storage anyway. And so, these platforms in the middle are kind of becoming less and less relevant. Now, there's nuance to that because, obviously Databricks is an extremely powerful platform. I'll get into the reasons why I like it first. Is like why I prefer Databricks over any of these other technologies personally. Like for the use cases I think it's valuable for. And I've done a video about this, but like it's a couple years old now, so a lot of the content's stale. But like what I like about Databricks is I can bring the compute very close to the data. I can run Databricks in my own like AWS environment, for example. I do think they've done a great job with Delta. Like they have a lot of amazing features built on top of Delta that isn't enabled in other platforms or doesn't have an equivalent, for example. And there's things like just example, dynamic column skipping, Z indexes. Like there's a lot of things Databricks has built into their product that make it better than these others. It also has a really great notebook environment. It's the primitive for Databricks, which data scientists love to work in. I'm not a fan of notebooks for data pipelines or building pipelines. Databricks has made a lot of investments into things like Delta Live tables and other technologies in their platform to make programming data transformations more of a first-class programming exercise. And they've added support for like version control. It's nowhere near as good as Foundry's, but so they're making a lot of progress. I think they far outshine any of these other offerings for what a data lakehouse is actually good for. And those advantages also, it's extremely cheap. Like Databricks isn't expensive really to run, in my opinion. Now, that cost is relative, but in my opinion, it's extremely cheap and affordable compute engine. And you're basically paying the cost. If you run it inside your AWS environment, for example, your cost is primarily just the raw AWS compute. So, it's an extremely affordable platform. It's a very sharp scalpel for very skilled people to wield and to do really amazing stuff with it. And all of the data products are first-class citizens in Foundry, and now especially with the multimodal data plane in Foundry. And so what the multimodal data plane in Foundry is enabling is the ability to not only read the open data formats and use these, you can use object stores directly, or you can use these data lakehouse technologies as a go-between. But what it allows you not only to read the data, model the data, but you can also write the data now. So like with the multimodal data platform in Foundry, you can write your tables out to these object stores that are underneath, right? And that's amazing, because if you are one of these companies who's engaged in a multi-year useless MDM exercise in which it's a moving target and the applications are going to be built faster than you can keep up with. But if you have done this exercise and you value data strategy for whatever reason, now Foundry can fit right into that architecture in a first-class way, in which it's clear and simple to understand the value unlock of Foundry, which is actually delivering business value, and the fact that it can fit right into the strategy you've engineered yourself into. And so, for people who are stuck in this box, it is a very useful relief valve, because what's happening over here is all this data is building up under pressure. No one's using it, right? So the pressure is, what the hell did we do this for? No one's using this data. Why can't we unlock the value of this data? Because that's another multi-year exercise of building the applications and the tooling and the security and governance and everything else that goes into operationalizing the data in the lakehouse. And a good analogy here, I didn't come up with it. I think it's Andy on Twitter that came up with this, but it's like you got to let the water flow through the pipes to get any value out of it, right? So like Foundry, what it's enabling in these locked-in things here is like, we can open the valves, we can unblock our initiatives. Oh my God, we can build a use case in a matter of weeks on this shit. Amazing, right? And so this is a great partnership between Databricks and Palantir, because you can now go into the business where Databricks is entrenched, and you can say, hey, all that value you're planning to extract over the next 3 years, spending millions of dollars hiring React engineers and other front-end engineers and data experts and security experts to help manage all this crap. Yeah, you can just buy this instead, and we'll start building your use cases like tomorrow, and you can hire like 1/10 of those people you were planning to. And so this is a massive, massive value unlock from the standpoint of the business, being able to come in with Databricks in a first-class way and be like, hey, let's unlock these use cases. And in the press release, you'll see Databricks really values AIP. It values Palantir's ability to build applications, basically everything north of the ontology, right? And what's cool is you can still do data modeling in Foundry with the multimodal data plane. Like I can use Pipeline Builder, which is the best tool out there in the market today to do data engineering on big data, in my opinion. You can leverage Pipeline Builder. You can leverage the PySpark environments in Foundry. And what's cool is it will push the compute down to your data warehouse, right? So these supported data warehouses will actually run the compute, which saves you on cost. So any argument that was taking place, well, Palantir's too expensive, their compute's 3 to 4 times what I'm paying for Databricks. Fuck you. All right, fine. We'll run it in Databricks. You happy now? Now can we get to the business of actually delivering value, right? Like something the businesses are going to actually use? I think so. I think we can do that. Another really cool architecture here, besides this one that I'm showing you for Foundry with the multimodal data plane, is like if you haven't engaged in this useless MDM exercise and you're kind of starting from scratch and you don't really know what technology to pick. Well, maybe you don't need to pick one of those legacy data warehouse technologies. Maybe you can just do this. Build a data mesh on Foundry, for example, using the multimodal data platform and the Delta data catalog, because you can store all of your data. All of your data will still be stored out here in object storage. You're getting the benefits of the scale, the very cheap storage cost from your cloud provider, but you can now manage those inside a Delta data catalog in Foundry, which makes sort of like the Merck architecture. Merck in Germany uses Foundry kind of in a similar way, where you can read about it online. It's a published AWS article. If you want to look up like Palantir, Merck, AWS, you'll find the article. It describes their architecture, where they essentially use Foundry as their source for their central data catalog for all of their teams downstream, like their AI teams, their data analytics teams, ML teams, etc. They all access data through Foundry. Well, you can do that, and if you want to hang one of these other technologies off it, because you have team members who really value Databricks over here, because it's a sharp scalpel and they need a sharp scalpel to do what they're going to do, by all means, team A, you need that tech, go grab it. Grab whatever tech you want that is the best to solve a problem, but let's stay focused on not having to build a Foundry-like platform for the next 10 years. The joke is it took Palantir 10 years and $2 billion to build Foundry. Like, if you want to go ahead and guess what? As a company, you get to amortize that cost over a customer base of one. Like, that is just stupid. So, like, maybe just if you haven't gone and done this approach yet, where you spent 3 years trying to figure out how to use data and you still haven't figured out how to use data, adopting a data mesh strategy with Delta Data Catalog and the multimodal data plane, this will allow a massive value unlock for your org, because it allows teams downstream to work with an open data format with the tools they prefer. But within Foundry, you get to speed up, you get to immediately ingest and model that data in a secure environment with all the security controls and use it in applications. It's got its own north of the ontology layer for building applications in a secure and governable way. It includes AIP in that platform as well. So you're not stuck anymore, right? And so I would highly advise customers, if you now, with support for Delta, with the multimodal data plane, don't even adopt a data warehouse technology. Actively think about getting rid of this shit in a lot of cases, unless there's a real need, right? Like, if there's a real need beyond it's used by our analytics workloads, like a Databricks style, where it's like, hey, my ML teams really need this tool, or my research teams, my alt data team, they really need this tool because it's the tool that they know, it is faster, it is cheaper, great. Like, there's a use case for it. But you shouldn't be invested in these technologies anymore, and they are going to be relegated. Like, these open data formats and the storage engines taking on more and more role for compute, eventually a lot of these things may just go away. The need for them will essentially go away. They'll just get folded or absorbed into the object storage layer. I think that, companies are, again, they're rapidly evolving to like Databricks, for example, into the lakehouse game, where streaming is a big push. But honestly, like, unless you have a need for streaming, don't fucking do it, dude. Like, it's complicated. Late arrival data, high water marks. What happens when your stream gets bottlenecked? Replaying a stream when you have to change the logic in it. These are all things you do not want to deal with unless you actually have a need. And I think you're going to get more and more companies trying to push this streaming crap on you when you really don't need it. If you're not making decisions that require up to the second, sub-second latency, don't do it. If someone's going to be looking at a dashboard once a day, you do not need real-time data. Most companies can't even get real-time data. That's a misnomer. So, like, stay away from the streaming snake oil unless you actually have a need for it. Consider this architecture now with Foundry, with its support for the Delta data catalog and the multimodal data plane, which allows you to take full advantage of the cheap storage. You can take full advantage of other data warehousing technology, compute, if you want to do that. Maybe there's some ways you can reduce your Foundry spend if you do that. I don't think it's worth the engineering time. We're talking like pennies here. When, in my opinion, when organizations are complaining about this, maybe they're spending $2 million on compute. I'm like, yeah, the cost center is $200 million. So why are we talking about a $2 million compute spend? We should be talking about how do we automate away the $200 million cost center using this data and AI, right? So in most cases, 90% of the orgs out there should really think about this architecture where Foundry is the central repository of all the data. It's the central catalog of all the data. It's also the primary platform for getting business value out of the data. And then you can hook up this other shit down here for teams that really need a different technology to do their job correctly. So this is a massive, massive value unlock. Again, being able to walk into a company and say, where does Foundry fit in my stack? Well, it fits right here, right? Like, it fits right here. That's a massive value unlock for Palantir and their sales team. We spent several years trying to answer that question, and it was very difficult for companies who are obsessed with data strategy and they want to know where every Lego block fits. Well, now we have a place where it fits, and not only is it just Palantir saying this, it's also Databricks, and pretty soon it's going to be everyone else. So that's all I got for you today. Hopefully you all understand now, like, why is this such a big deal? It's because companies have made investments in these technologies. It's a huge value unlock to now be able to layer in Foundry in the appropriate place, and it has first-class support for the open data formats that are powering all these things. And that means first-class support for the object storage layer that the company's invested in for their data lake. Massive, massive value unlock. The other is, like, it's really a broader industry trend that the need for a data warehouse technology is going away. The need for a lake house is kind of emerging, and whether or not that really has good product market fit, we'll soon see. But this here, the need for Foundry is astronomically high. And so being able to break down the sales barriers and bureaucracy barriers by knowing exactly where Foundry sits is a huge value unlock. And it's a huge value unlock for the business for Foundry to have first-class support for open data formats, which I've been asking for personally for years. I know other people like Nicholas who've been asking for this for a long time. So this is a huge value unlock. I think that it's going to propel like Foundry forward, as like they kind of lost the data warehouse wars in the early days. Now I think they're repositioned to win it, because a lot of companies still haven't really done this exercise. And so for every company that hasn't really invested in a data warehouse technology, they can catapult themselves further, faster by just using Foundry to do this. So it's a massive win. I'm super excited. I hope you all are excited. I want to see more of this. I'd love to see like a Snowflake partnership. I'd love to see a BigQuery partnership. They already have partnerships with the hyperscalers here. And by the way, going to market together, right? So like the new coalition of Foundry sales, in my opinion, is Palantir plus large consultancy or small consultancy to help with the costs, AWS, Azure, or GCP, depending on the cloud provider, and one of these data warehouse technologies. That could be a hell of a coalition, right, to go into a company. And especially, even if you're just doing Palantir, hyperscaler, and consultancy, that's a hell of a coalition, because the hyperscalers also have tremendous power and pull within a lot of these organizations. To be, Foundry is going to keep those GPUs that they've invested in running hot, baby, right? So like all that infrastructure spend that these hyperscalers have invested in, Foundry is the thing to keep those GPUs warm, because it's the platform that makes AI easy. It makes AI practical. It makes AI aligned with business value out of the box, right? There's no multi-year engineering exercise to do. So going in with the hyperscaler as a partner who sees Foundry as the way to keep those GPUs warm that all their shareholders are asking about, and then coming in with a large consultancy that has the labor pool to manage hundreds and hundreds of work, we call them delivery pods, that's massive, right? Like now all of a sudden the deal size for Palantir goes from like a $10 million average deal size to something more like 50 million or 100 million. They're like the full enchilada for the digital transformations. This is going to be massive. And that's what I'm pushing for now with like a lot of people at Palantir I'm talking to. Our new sales strategy shouldn't be 5 million, it should be 50. Because if we actually do this right, we will unlock billions of value for these organizations, right? So like going in with Foundry, tip of the spear, you establish your beachhead with Palantir, and then you build out all these, you basically are attacking cost centers within the business with data and AI. If we do that over the Fortune 500, GDP is going to rise in the US, right? So like, let's get to work on that. And that's all I got for you today. I hope you enjoyed this episode.